Everyone, thanks for dropping by and for returning to the old world. Today let's talk about New Year, New Army, and why I don't think it's necessarily a great idea. We're a couple of weeks in to January, so it's probably a good time to reflect on a phrase we're probably seeing more and more. Now, I know that many of you have already got projects on the go ready for the release of Warhammer the Old World, and that we're hoping for a release date sometime in the next 12 months. And we're also seeing the traditional rallying cry of New Year, New Army, probably as an organised thing, a Tale of X-Gamers type event, where we're looking to paint a number of models per month, a number of points worth of models per month, ready to have games at certain points of the year of predetermined sizes. Now, is New Year, New Army bad? No, it's not. It's got positives. It allows us in these dreary months of January, February, particularly those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, looking at grey, dark days with lots of rain where it's also cold. Gives us something to get excited about. The planning, the collecting, the painting. Learning a new force. And if it is an organised event, we've got some structure. I need to get X, Y, Z done this month, next month, etc. But in my experience, a lot of these projects do tend to run out of steam, and I think there's a number of reasons why that is. These are the negatives around New Year, New Army. The first of these is that they distract from other projects. You've probably got an incomplete army kicking around, because let's face it, no force is ever truly finished. And you'll have units that you want to paint up or certainly assemble for those armies that are now going to sit on the shelf because you've been distracted by the New Year, New Army project. So the grey mountain grows, the weight of those unfinished models on our shoulders. There's the risk around unfamiliarity. So a New Year, New Army, it tends to be a force you're not familiar with. Most people don't really use it as a chance to build a new twist on an existing army. They go for something really new. And I have seen, as part of some organised New Army projects, people are being actively encouraged to play something they haven't really played before. So what does this mean? Well, you might have an idea of how it plays because you've come across it against you several times. But do you really enjoy painting the models? Do you actually like the play style and the way that army performs on the table? Does it give you the level of pleasure that you want from it? Or are you going to get bored and they fall by the wayside? It's actually starting through projects by thinking, actually, I've played against this army a couple of times. It seems really cool. I'm going to go for it. That I discovered, for example, I really don't like painting elves. And yeah, I'd bought a box, I'd tried to paint them, I'd given up, but I hadn't really invested in a project. So, lesson learned, few quid wasted effectively, but not the end of the world. I didn't have a big stack of stuff that I knew I wasn't going to enjoy painting, sat on the shelf ready to be dragged out of its boxes. Then there's the scheduling to think about. Now, I've mentioned already that having a schedule can be useful because we've got to get so much done in January, so much done in February. I've got a game at the end of March. I need to be ready for that. I need to have my 750 points ready, whatever it may be. But what happens if you fall behind? We're talking about hobby time here, and hobby time is often interrupted by the cares of our real day-to-day lives, be it work, be it family needs, so many things. And the last thing you want is the hobby time to become pressure. I need to get this done. And if we start falling behind, there's more and more and more that we need to get done. And particularly if we're looking at a game in a month or two's time that we want to get involved in, that we then can't because we haven't got the figures ready, or we're having to do real bodge job paints, which, let's face it, no one really takes pleasure in deliberately undercooking what they're doing. Particularly if that doesn't fit in with what they've got in their head as the image of the final product. We'll only have to go back and do it again later anyway. There's also the expense to consider. Now, wargaming's not necessarily a cheap hobby. At some scales it's much more affordable, but if we're talking 28mm Warhammer 40k, something like that, then can we scratch our itch with existing projects? If we're looking to add variety, can we add a couple of specialist units that will change the way our army can operate on the field, on the table, or that will change our colour palette sufficiently? So I'm thinking, for example, Slayers for a dwarf army. Maybe if you've got British Napoleonics, adding a bunch of riflemen. It's not your rank and file red coats. It's a different colour scheme. Skirmish warfare. And you can get there much easier than creating a whole new army from scratch. So how would I round this up into some conclusions? Well, I accept there's benefits for New Year, New Army. And it will work for some people. But I think it has to be adopted as part of a planned approach where you know it's coming, it fits into your existing schedule, and you've got a good chance of being able to commit fully to the concept. Going into New Year, New Army, or a Tale of X Gamers, whatever you want to call it, as an impulse, really increases those downside risks that I just discussed. And I do think in those circumstances it's probably better to try and focus on a project you've already got underway and taking them to a conclusion, or at least a point that's sufficiently more advanced that you're happy with the progress that you've made. This in itself will give us a certain reward because we've got that sense of achievement without having to invest as much time, effort, etc. as we would have to if we were planning, collecting, building and playing with a whole new army. There are lots of ways to achieve the variety we want, and I just think we need to think carefully. So there we have it. Overall, I think there are a lot of downsides to diving into a new project, particularly where you've not planned for that. And I would only do so after really giving careful consideration as to whether a new army fits in with my goals for the period of time we're talking about. Appreciating my video on New Year resolutions. Talked about doing a new Necromunda gang. That is 12 models over 12 months, effectively. It's not going to take a lot of time away from finishing the project I really want to get done, which is to advance my Warhammer Dwarf army ready for when the Old World's released. Now, if I saw New Year, New Army and went for it, actually that would probably put all of my projects at risk of not getting where I need them to be and leaving me disappointed with my hobby progress. And it's a hobby. It's about enjoyment. And we want it to be a positive thing. Thank you very much for for listening to the last 10 minutes or so of me waffling on around New Year, New Army. Now, I would be interested to know, are you taking part in a Tale of X Gamers in 2023? Have you adopted New Year, New Army? Was it an impulse? What do you think about that? Or is it something you've been planning for and fitting into your longer term plans? Do let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, this is Return to the Old World. Have a great day.